Many people hear about intellectual property or IP, but we're not sure whether everyone exactly understands it the same way. What is intellectual property or IP in your view?
The easiest way to answer, Raja, nice that you dive straight into that. Thanks for having me over. Malaysian Institute of Management is really core and warm to my heart because I've been very involved for a long time with MIM. But IP is a very unusual term. When I first started, and you speak to people and you say, I'm an intellectual property lawyer, they think it's very stuffy and it's very arrogant. What is so intellectual about what you do compared to what they do? But what IP is in the name itself. It's property created by the intellectual minds. So that's what intellectual property is. And it's invisible, and that's why a lot of people don't see it. You don't hear about it as much. Whereas property is tangible. The houses, the condominiums, that's tangible. Factories, warehouses are tangible. So intellectual property created by the mind, is invisible. And we can't see it. People don't value it as much, even though it is as important. And intellectual property is an umbrella term for various types of assets that people create. You and I created, everyone around us, your neighbors created. We just don't realize it. It is, for example, it involves brands, trademarks that's affixed to products or services. It involves processes or products that is created by people. That technology is protected by patents. Then you have design, the mic in front of us. If it's a new design, protected by design rights. And mobile phones, various types of artistic and aesthetic look to products are protected by design rights. The intellectual property right that everyone is very familiar with is copyright. It's literary work and artistic work. You were saying you're an artist, and the art that you create, you own copyright in that. So those are the main four: patents, trademarks, copyright, and design rights. You also have confidential information, trade secrets. For example, Coca-Cola has 11 ingredients, KFC's ingredients in its flour batter. All of those are trade secrets, which are also intellectual property rights.
Right.
And there's more. So there's a lot more: geographical indication, plant variety rights. But the main four are those.
Yeah. You see, a lot of big companies, big brands, they do file for IP protection and all, right? But the larger business segment, they're not that big a company.
Mm-hmm.
But do you think they underestimate the value of IP?
It's changing. I mean, I've been in this industry for 20 years. In Malaysia as well, it was always the larger companies that are more attentive, also have the budget. They have an R&D team, a research and development team, constantly looking at innovation. Whatever comes out, they protect through patent rights or design rights. They're looking at staying ahead of the game. They are large for a reason, and they want to stay ahead of the game and have that market share by being the largest competitor or having that competitive advantage. But over the years, I find that SMEs and even sole proprietors have learned that they also have an asset, and if they protect it, it takes their business to another level. So, for example, I mean, that question is that do small companies realize it? Some companies approach me and say that I only run one restaurant. Do I really need to register my trademark? And my question to them is always, how big is your dream? Do you eventually want to have 15 restaurants or 30 restaurants? Do you want to have personalized menu and create a specific name for your food products, like McDonald's Filet-O-Fish is a specific name? If you have a personality you want to create, you want to eventually own many restaurants, you want to go through the franchising system, then yes, look at protecting your trademark and the other elements of IP in your business. It's always not whether, am I small? Should I protect my IP? It's always, how big is your dream? Because IP is what you rely on as you grow your business. And successful businesses will have copycats. And that's what intellectual property is. It's an insurance against copycats in the market.
Like the small businesses, as you said, right?
Mm-hmm.
It all depends on their dream. But who speaks to them to really trigger them that this is important in today's world? Or let's say in Malaysia, right? Is there a body that really talks about this all the time? Or...
Well, a lot of intellectual property lawyers, myself included, give a lot of public awareness talks. Some are very passionate about it, and it's our give back to society. But the Malaysian Intellectual Property Office, or known as MIPO, also does a lot of road shows, especially to rural areas, giving talks on intellectual property and telling them how important it is.
Right. Like in the economy today, innovation or even tech for that matter, it's moving very fast, right? But keep innovating and innovating and innovating. Where do they need to take a step back and say, I got to file my IP now, and I need to continue my innovation, So how do they balance this?
It's a very good question. So it's basically, when do they pay attention to IP? For all startups, the ideal time is actually at the start stage, when it's in prototype and when you're thinking big as well. The thing about intellectual property rights, some of the intellectual property rights, such as patents and designs, are time sensitive. Okay, for simplicity, and because we have a mic in front of me, let's say I created this mic and I'm a startup. I want to put this in the Malaysian market and then ASEAN and then maybe the US and EU. That's normally the trend. You test the local market and local region first. And it's a new product in the market. If I've created the technology, the sound system behind this, there's 2 IP rights here. The main one would be the technology, how my voice transfers into this microphone, and then it's then recorded. And then the design, if it's unique, also is protected by design rights. So there's 2. They are time sensitive. What I mean is intellectual property rights have to be new before they're protected. If I test the market and I sell to a few audio companies, this podcast house, or a multimedia company, test whether do they even like my product. That's me putting the product in the marketplace, and that means it's no longer new. There's disclosure. By putting it in the marketplace, it's disclosure. My own disclosure ruins my rights to register a design and patents. There's a grace period, but that's going very technical. You have a 1-year grace period in Malaysia, but some countries do not have a grace period where the owner themselves, the inventor themselves, can put the product in the marketplace. Because it's time sensitive, it means it has to be new and inventive and industrially applicable for patents. I already lose that first criteria of it being new because I've put in the marketplace. That means I cannot register a patent, and then I cannot file it abroad in other countries. That's for design rights and patent rights. It must be new at the time of filing. So for startups and tech businesses, the awareness that you have to go to an IP lawyer and get it protected first before you put it in the marketplace is very important. For trademarks, on the other hand, so its trademarks, for example, is this Leaders logo here and MIM podcast on behind you, Raja. That is not time sensitive because you have rights called unregistered rights. You can test the market, use it for a few years, and 5 years later, go and register a trademark. Then you don't lose your rights unless someone else has already registered a trademark. Then that's another ball game. But it's not as time sensitive as patents and designs. So awareness is key, because sometimes we have people inventing various products coming to us after they've been selling it for 3 years and say that sales are great now, I want to take it to Indonesia and Thailand. And that's when it gets tricky. Said, how long has it been sold in Malaysia? Oh, 3 years. And that you can't. It has to be new worldwide.
Right. So in your opinion, organizations that you have dealt with, are they looking at IP as a legal instrument or an asset for the company to grow it further? What's the view like?
The larger companies see it as an asset. I think one experience I have, it's ironically 2 very large companies, both public listed. We'll not talk about what industry or their names, but when I deal with one company, I deal with sometimes their marketing and their HR division. They park it in that department, their IP rights. Whereas another company, I deal directly with the chairman and the CEO. So you can see how they treat it differently in various companies. And I find that when it's with the chairman and the CEO, it already shows that the company has an innovation culture. And IP assets are so valuable that they see that influencing the share prices. They see that navigating the direction, the strategic direction of the company. The ideas are better. It's much more strategic because it's coming at a very high level, and they've discussed it at the board level.
Right.
Compared to, the staff will create and protect whatever the staff creates.
Right.
Yeah.
So therein lies this gap between the top and middle and also lower, right?
Yeah.
In terms of how they understand IP. Some are very operational, some are very strategic.
That's right.
So are we moving in a, or is this gap getting bigger and bigger, or are you saying this gap is getting closer, being closed?
It's over the years between SMEs, I feel there's more awareness. So then in that sense, I would say it's still a big gap. It's still a big gap for Asians, for Southeast Asians. But there's more awareness, and more are starting to create, and more are seeing the value of spending time to create and innovate.
Right. Can you give us some examples of what's happening around the
Okay, no problem. So there's 700 million people in ASEAN. And ASEANs were always IP users. We are always known to be IP users. We're not IP generators. We don't create. And those used to be countries like Germany, Korea, Japan, US, European companies, a lot more. And then you see now it's heading towards China. China is becoming one of the biggest IP creators. I find that IP is created where there's power, it's and the power in the world, the global economy is shifting into ASEAN, mainly since COVID. When COVID happened, all these Western businesses started looking at how do we put the eggs in other baskets and diversify supply chain away from China. Keep it in China as well, but it can't only be in China, because if anything like COVID happens again, the world goes into standstill. So over the years, since COVID in 2020 and 2021, companies have already started looking at manufacturing bases in other countries. Then with China Plus One strategy, which is let's look beyond China, we're seeing a lot of attraction into Malaysia, Indonesia, Thailand, Philippines. In that trend, with more foreign direct investment into these countries, the locals also then see what is happening around them, and there's more fluidity of economy in the country. They then also jump on the bandwagon to create and take their IP assets and commercialize them. So you see that trend happening. And that's what's happening with more and more intellectual property rights being created.
Yeah. So what are the top 3, say, mistakes that entrepreneurs do when it comes to IP?
It's, again, a very, very good and relevant question. Entrepreneurs, I feel, are always on number one, survival mode, and pushing their products or services into the market and trying to get into cash flow positive, which is very, very important. I think where the top 3 mistakes would be putting IP on the back burner sometimes and not looking at it as a priority, because the mistakes that happens when it's too late. So it's putting the product out there, launching it in other countries, and then realizing, wait, I get a legal letter from another company saying that my trademark is exactly the same as theirs, and now I have to change it. When that happens, you've already put so much of effort and money into creating your packaging, creating the marketing plan, creating your website. So when all of that starts, you then have to pull your handbrake and then look at, okay, back to the drawing board and recreating my brand, or negotiating with the other party and buying their brand. So one of the common mistakes is not valuing IP at an early stage, and only after everything goes, then look at IP. The second one is the mistake that a lot of businesses and entrepreneurs have, is thinking that it is expensive. Patents are more expensive than a trademark, but in terms of what you get out of a patent, the technology, when you protect it, you have 20 years rights to that technology. So what it does, it carves out a fence for you to prevent your competitors from entering that market for 20 years. And that's a long time, because by then, your technology will be obsolete. So you would be creating and having your team constantly create and improve the technology to put a better version out there in the market. So it's valuing the IP and knowing that you can actually carve out and prevent your competitors to enter. And when you carve out that, you have premium pricing strategy that you can do. That's what Apple did. When you have intellectual property rights, okay, let's look at Apple as a very innovative company. Yeah? Apple was not the first in music technology. It was not the first with MP3s, but yet it created the iPod. When iPod came out, it was not new, but it was very fancy. It was user-friendly. I don't know, some people out there might not even remember the iPod because we have Spotify and everyone's streaming. But in my time, we had iPod. It used to be a long device. It was first fat, and then it got thinner, and then it got smaller. So, and everyone in our generation might remember that you can turn the device, and it was user-friendly. Apple got market share through the iPod. And they registered the design of the product and the technology, because there were some features that were very new. One button and the flipping, from twirling your hand and you flip music. So that was registered as a design, and there was patents involved. Apple was not the first to discover tablets. Tablet was already existing, yet they went one step further and created iPad. Again, it was a one button home technology. And then they registered the design and the patents related to just having one button to bring everything back to the home page. So Apple is an example of a company that looked at how can I carve a market share? How can I be different? But here is existing technology that I just take it one step further.
You mentioned this twice, that people should start thinking about IP at the start of their business or start of a product innovation.
Yes.
But I'm just imagining, if I would start something, build something, I have an idea and I start building that, at what point do I file an IP,
So it feels like it's already into a question where a person has when they're creating something. It has to be workable. With invention, it has to be a prototype that works. Because the criteria to register a patent would be, it has to be new, it has to be inventive, and it has to be industrially applicable. And when we draft a patent, depending on the complexity of the invention, it can be 10 pages or it can be 30 to 50 pages. And a patent document details how the invention works. And that actually brings back to why do we have to put so much of detail in a patent document? For that 20 years of protection, what is happening is the inventor is revealing how the invention works to the government. And that document becomes publicly accessible by everyone, including all your competitors. Why would anyone want to do that? I've invented something. Why am I giving my competitors my data, my details? And it has to be a workable invention. In that patent, if I work that patent in that document, I should be able to recreate this invention. But the rationale in patent law is that because you reveal your invention to the government and to the public at large, the government gives you 20 years protection. You now have these rights that the government allows you to monopolize and commercialize your patents for the 20 years because you've revealed this information to the public. So in that sense, it encourages innovation.
Right.
So when that information is out there, you as a company can also constantly read other people's technology and innovate. So IP law kind of pushes innovation into the forefront of everyone's mind.
Right. Coming back to protection, say I patent my product. Yeah. It's geographical based.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
And if there's someone imitating my product, I got to be wary of what's happening around the world.
Yes.
Right. So if I find out, what do I do first?
It's a good thought process, because that also goes into people saying that I don't have enough money for IP rights. Actually, the cost of protection of IP rights is cheaper than cost of enforcing an IP right. When you have an intellectual property right, whether it's patent, design, or trademarks, the cops are not watching who's misusing your rights. It becomes industry specific. You have to be aware. And most of the times when we find that our clients' rights are being infringed, it's usually the distributors who find out. If it's a product out there, distributors find out, wait, there's another product out here that's slashing their prices. How come, if it's patented, how come they're allowed to? So the owner then is alerted by their salespeople and distributors. So it's an active action that the owner has to take against the infringer, whether it's whatever IP right, it's an active action that the owner has to take. Otherwise, the entire ecosystem, your distributors, your franchisees, all of them lose trust in the fact that you're not enforcing your rights and allowing others to enter that market space, even though they're misusing your rights. So it is on the owner to take action.
Right. So you were a lawyer before,
Mm-hmm.
and you are still a lawyer.
Still a lawyer. I'm not a practicing lawyer,
Okay.
but
Then you moved to lead this organization that you're running now,
That's right.
which has grown to about 7 offices in the region. So this is a two-part question to you. How do you start this journey? Number one. Number two is, how do you manage to scale this up?
The starting of the journey is an interesting part. I liked intellectual property law very much when I was studying law in the UK. It was one of those areas of law that the cases are very interesting. Also, it's very distinct. Trademarks are very distinct from patents and design and copyrights. All these areas, they might be termed under intellectual property, but in my intellectual property law subject as well, it is so heavy. Each of them are so heavy on its own that you only can choose two to focus on for the year and sit for exams. That's how heavy they are. And because I enjoyed the subject a lot, it was already something that I felt I wanted to specialize in. What spurred me even more was the fact that my dad was an intellectual property lawyer, still is, and he specialized in this for 40 years. And at that time, I was like, if I like this so much, then doesn't that make natural progression to join him, because he's dedicated his whole life towards this profession and this area of law. And that's how, when I finished my law, I decided to join that dad. When I joined the firm, there were 7 individuals in the firm. And Dad was one of the pioneer IP lawyers in Malaysia. A lot of people in the intellectual property office, MIPO, knew him. He was attending, giving a lot of talks. The World IP Organization used to invite him around the world to be a speaker. He was asked to draft the trademark law in Bangladesh. So really up there, that was an IP lawyer that was well known and renowned in Malaysia. I had big shoes to fill. That's why I had to kind of present who my dad is. He won cases in court as well. Clients come to us because Dad was winning cases in court. He was a litigation lawyer. And then I felt, okay, it's an area of law I like, but there's big shoes to fill. And because of that, at a young age, I really pushed myself. I straight away started attending intellectual property talks by other IP lawyers. And I'll be sitting there and saying, not only I want to be on stage, I want to speak better than him. I want to speak better than her. So with that mindset, I joined Toastmasters. I started working on my public speaking skills. Then very soon after that, I joined various business groups. I learned, I was a lawyer. So one hat I was wearing was the legal cap. I needed to learn intellectual property law. You can't just talk. You need to walk the talk. So I knew that I needed to specialize and learn the profession and give good advice to clients and support clients. Then the other hat I was wearing at the same time was the entrepreneur hat. Okay, how do I manage the team? How do I build the team, motivate the team? How do I look at expansion and look at marketing, creating a better website, and everything that goes with building a business, being strategic, being visionary. So those 2 hats, I think, kept me very challenged and excited. I had a lot of passion because of doing 2 things at the same time. There's a lot to learn here and a lot to learn here. And I enjoyed that journey. On to growing the firm to where we are now, the credit goes to my dad. I feel like a lot of people feel that, Geetha, you've done a great job, but the hardest part of a business is starting a business. I always feel that. And I work with startups all the time with IP rights. The first 5 years, it's very easy to fail and it's very easy to give up and it's very easy to get demotivated. So for him to start, to have the courage to start and then persevere through all the challenges he would have had, and was big. So I came in at a level where I felt there was a springboard. Okay, he's laid the foundation. Let me help to strengthen the foundation and take it to another level. That took the firm to Indonesia and Singapore. He started in Indonesia and Singapore, seeing the market. And when I joined, I saw the potential in all these other emerging economies. We're in a prime location, we have a young demographic, we have large population, everyone's hungry to be successful. So I visited Vietnam, Thailand, Myanmar, and then we saw the potential. So in a staggered way, we started opening offices there so that we can build a team and manage the quality of work that we do in those countries. That's for one reason why we started it. We saw the demand of intellectual property in all those countries. But the other reason is also to support the local businesses in those countries. We felt that the way we give talks, the way we have webinars, all of that supports the local economy. And let's rise together and build ASEAN to have intellectual property rights within local entrepreneurs too.
Can you recall a couple of major challenges that you have faced in opening up offices abroad?
So many. I think that's the thing of being an entrepreneur. You ask them for one failure, you probably have like 10 failures. Vietnam, I think we were opening Vietnam and Thailand around the same time. This must have been 2019, 2020. I do remember we opened it before COVID. So when COVID hit, it was like, oh, we have all these new offices. But it's all about team. When you want to start any business, and especially outside your country, you have to have a very strong team. We had interviewed a number of candidates and found 2 suitable, strong candidates for Thailand and Vietnam. We fly them into Malaysia, and then we have training for them in the country. And the thing about a startup in a different country, or any startup, you do 2 things. You're actually a lawyer, again, like how I was. I'm a lawyer and an entrepreneur. That lawyer of ours in whichever country they're in also has to look at HR, has to look at marketing, has to look at how to grow that office in that country. At the end of 1 week, I think our training was too overwhelming. One of the 2 from Thailand and Vietnam, the one in Vietnam said, this is not for me. At the end of 1 week, I'm like, so our entire leadership team was back to square one then. And that's tough when you tell everyone, you prepare the marketing and your own team's watching the leaders, what are we doing? And then suddenly now we don't have our Vietnam country manager. I think that was one of our testing periods. I went back, told the team, it's a bump on that highway. Give us time. We will find someone else who's suited for the role. And in time we did. We went back to the drawing board, spoke to the headhunter, interviewed more. And I always feel that when things like that happens, it means that something better is waiting for you. I'm a strong believer of that. When anything bad or difficult happens in life or challenging moments happen, personal or in business, it means that there's something better waiting for you. And I feel now that Lynn, a shout out to you, Lynn, our country manager in Vietnam, is very capable, very admirable, very dedicated. So we're very, very happy and proud to have her there and leading the team there.
So in your opinion, entrepreneurs' mindset, what would be driving their mindset to be like you? I mean, don't give up, go back again and try to build over and over again. What drives them to be like this?
That's a debate that might take another hour of a podcast. What is intrinsic or extrinsic? I really don't know. I don't know. I have 3 children, and my daughter, I feel, has a drive that's intrinsic. And I look at my 2 sons, and I'm like, when are you both going to wake up? I think it's both. I look at both my elder brothers. I'm the youngest in the family. They also have very high drive. They both strive to be the best in their profession, I feel. And it came from parenting. So as much as it's intrinsic, I think we're very influenced by the people around us, by the parents. If you don't have strong parents or strong role models as parents, then you're looking around you and you're picking up the vibe and the energy with the people around you. So I would say it is surrounding yourself with like-minded people. So startups, a lot of entrepreneurs, it's a lonely journey. So a lot of them, it's very much encouraged for them to join business groups, a lot of leadership groups, a lot of coaching groups, because then you not only learn from everyone in that circle, you really vibrate on that same energy. And that gives you that energy to take it to another level, take it to a better place, never give up when something difficult happens.
Right. You also sit in boards, company boards, etc., right? And as we know, a board has to be very diverse leadership community by itself, right? So when it comes to IP, do you think all of them would have some form of differences in ideas or views on IP, or they all kind of agree to what you think IP should be in those companies?
It's the dynamic of the board really matters. With intellectual property, the boards I sit on are in the tech field as well. But a lot of times the success is in trading, and then in the trend is when you in the tech and manufacturing field, the success is usually trading. And then it'll come to a plateau where you need to differentiate yourselves with others in that industry. That's when research and development teams are started. That's when discussion and strategy is done. Data is given. You start analyzing what competitors are creating, what competitors are doing. Where's the blue ocean space that I can now tap into? So I find that the boards I sit on at the moment are new companies entering the public listed arena. So it will get to a stage where that's very much in their purview. Whereas you see the companies that are already many years in the main board, not only have the funds, but then have the years of being in that arena, they already had to differentiate themselves. So I find it's the mature boards that then has a lot of attention into innovation and attention into pushing for IP. And it really depends on the industry.
Right.
So if you're in the tech industry, it's very essential to constantly look at R&D and how to maximize that and commercialize your innovations.
What kind of questions do you ask the leadership team of that organization when it comes to IP? How do you ensure that IP is an essential topic in those organizations with the management team?
Yeah. So it goes back to what is your business strategy? When a company leader plots out their 3 to 5 years business strategy, that's when you can see that how long will it last if you're not looking at IP. IP comes in, we look at all the S&P companies, S&P 500 companies, 80% of those companies have very strong intellectual property rights. If they're not intellectual property rights, then you're looking at them being commodity companies. So if you're a non-commodity company, IP has to be crucial in your thought process because that's where you grow. You take your business to another level. So it would be through the business strategy, the long-term plan. Where's your direction? Where's your strategy? And in that, how much are you innovating?
Right. You spoke about tech companies. Yeah. Today, AI is a mainstream technology. Everybody is on AI bandwagon. Has that changed how people see IP or how IP is being developed?
I find that with AI being used, a lot more inventions are coming out, and a lot of AI is tagging onto brick and mortar inventions, mechanical inventions. They look at AI, there's a lot of data reading, and then the product works in a better way. So there's more and more inventions with AI infused elements. The World IP Organization itself has found that over in the past 10 years, their AI inventions has doubled. So that itself shows that it's really going in another level with AI inventions, AI-infused current inventions. The IoT already had AI. So it's just that it's taking IoT to another level, Internet of Things, right? Internet-infused mechanical products that now has more inventions using AI and data analysis for it to function better.
What about talent? For example, talent in the IP sector itself, the sector that you work,
Mhm.
you own a business in the IP sector. Do you think the talents today are more well versed with the topic of IP because of knowledge is now like so widely available?
No, in some interviews, some still don't know what intellectual property is.
Even though they are with legal background.
If with legal background, they would.
They
If
would.
it's non-legal background, they wouldn't. Because we also interview engineers. So the firm has 85 people in the company, and a lot of our team members are also engineers. When you look at patents, you need a mechanical. It's very specific domain. So you have a biotech, chemistry, E&E, and so on to understand the invention. So sometimes they're not exposed in their subject, in their law, in their engineering domain, they don't learn intellectual property rights. So they might not be exposed. But in terms of what the talent in these days need, it would definitely be well versed with digital technology, understanding that. But if that's not in their domain, then it's having that innovative mindset and a curious mindset to always learn. I think anyone with that kind of mindset can thrive in any profession. So any degree that you do, if you have an innovative and curious mindset, you will thrive into any profession that you enter.
Then would you think that in the curriculum that you have in the universities, all programs should have an IP element or IP content to learn?
Yes. Yeah, some already do, because there are courses that we're invited to, and suddenly there's an IP element and we give talks. So there's some business courses that have it, some medical universities that have incorporated it, because medical devices and biotech, with AI, a lot of inventions are coming out of that domain. So some universities in Malaysia do have incorporated, but not all. So it's an area that definitely needs to improve.
Right.
But also in schools, I find that an innovative mindset, that desire to create actually comes from a young age. It's whether you want to be an intellectual property user or an intellectual property creator. So classes like robotics, I think, really should be introduced at a younger age, because you're already training a kid's mind to, how can I create a different robot with different circuits? That itself is a creative mindset. So these kind of courses will benefit Malaysians to a large extent when introduced at a young age.
Talking about IP and say valuation of IP. Now, this is very subjective, I would imagine, right? I mean, if I'm an inventor, I would think this would cost probably in the market 10x, but in reality, there's nobody want to buy this for 10x, probably just 1.5x, for example. How do we bridge these kind of gaps in the market and the ones who's coming up with this IP?
With valuation, intellectual property valuation is quite difficult. It's very different from business valuation. With a product, let's take two examples here. I take a trademark that's been in the market for 10 years. Easier to value that compared to a patent that I haven't even launched. I've created something amazing. I've gone and got patent. I've started my process. It takes 4 to 5 years to get a patent registered. So I've applied for my patent. I have investors. I have people interested. This product is going to change the world, change the market. But it's not proven. You haven't put it in the marketplace yet. So that example compared to the trademark that's been around for 10 years, easier to value a trademark because you can project the sales. What's the next 5 years' sales? What is the DCF, the discounted cash flow value? What is the market share that you can gain? So with valuation, all valuers need data to even value. So valuation, we cannot put everything into one basket and say that IP valuation is difficult, cannot be trusted. It goes into, like I said, all these intellectual property rights are very distinct from each other. A patent is distinct from a trademark to a design. Can you imagine valuing each of this? And then how many years it's been in the marketplace? What is market share? Let's take a design, for example. You might have a registered design, but a design of a bottle, and you have a registered design. Another bottle that's similar to this but different design. How is yours compared to that? Will this sell more in the marketplace? So it goes into a lot of elements. And valuation, we look at income approach. How is it going to generate income? We look at market approach. What is it comparable to another business that has that IP, that has sold that IP in the open market? Then you look at cost approach. How much was it to develop that intellectual property asset? Cost is always the lowest, so you don't want to go along the cost approach. But sometimes you don't have a choice to go with the cost approach because you don't have the data to show the market and the income approach.
Right.
So it is very technical, but it can be valued, but it really depends on how much data you have.
What about IPs created by AI? Today, Gen AI is so huge. A lot of people, even individuals, are building content, image, designs, right? Not just businesses, right? How would people protect this kind of properties?
With AI, it's very interesting. So 2 elements of debate comes up. One is the AI created products or created art. It could be literary work, everything that has intellectual property rights, but now you use an AI machine to create the rights. Who owns the rights? So it's a question of ownership. And this has come into debate in many countries, not yet in Malaysia, but in other countries, it's gone all the way to court as well to see that can AI own all of this output that AI is creating? And all countries goes back to the law. All of these laws are statutory laws. Patent laws require an owner, needs to be an author, or the owner needs to be a human, and copyright law also needs to be a human. So when they rely on the statutes, the law has not evolved. Still say it needs a human element to create the products. So AI by itself, the machine, the software cannot own intellectual property rights. So far, there's no cases that have decided that AI can own intellectual property assets. However, some of the cases, and China is actually very advanced. There are a lot of intellectual property cases on ownership that have been litigated in China. And the cases have all headed in the direction where if there's enough human prompts, human intervention in the process where the AI created that invention or the AI created that literary work or artistic work, the human can own the rights. So if there is sufficient element of thought process in that human, in that process where the human use the AI, then there can be ownership, but the ownership lies with the human. Because it goes into a debate. If AI created, then human also cannot own it, right? Because is AI, okay, cannot own IP rights, but how can you say the human owns it when a computer or software created it? But then that case, the cases have then showed, no, there was a lot of prompts or a lot of effort needed to ask the right questions. One case even had 111 prompts. And in court, they were asked to use the same prompts again to see whether the same output comes up. And those who are using generative AI with Gemini, Copilot, Claude AI, and ChatGPT, the fact that if you use the same prompts on a different day, it doesn't come up with the same result. So that test was very interesting when that court said, okay, if you use the same prompts again, do you come out with the same design? That was a painting. It was a painting of a person that was created by AI that was misused by someone else who's saying that you don't own these rights because AI created it. So I can reproduce this image. And that owner went and sued the other person saying, no, I own the rights, not the AI. And the defense was that, no, AI owns the right. And then in court, he had to prove that all those prompts leads to the same output. So one I was saying earlier, Raja, was that one is who owns these rights? AI cannot own rights. Humans can own rights if there's sufficient human intervention in the way the AI had produced the output. Then the other domain is the litigation that's happening around the world with the scraping of data. All these language learning models are scraping all this data from internet, from authors. The Authors Guild in America had taken an action against the AI. So if I already own copyright and I did not give consent for my data to be scraped and put into AI, how is that not copyright infringement? So those are suits that also not finalized. It's still litigated. No outcome yet, no decision yet. But that's a valid argument there. If I did not give consent, then isn't that also infringement of my rights? So you've got two debates actually that's ongoing at the moment.
What's happening in Malaysia today when it comes to this topic?
There's nothing that has been litigated. So we are just watchful, watching and learning that what's happening around the world, that cases have gone to court. And I think if anything, it's going to be what the trend is that human-generated AI can be protected if there's a lot of human intervention, human input.
Right. Can you cite one case that you have dealt with, was a very challenging case in Malaysia?
Yeah, definitely can. We were advising McDonald's and McCurry, the lawyer that took the case to federal court. It was a very interesting case. So a bit of background on McDonald's and McCurry case is the McDonald's took an action against McCurry, and McCurry is a local entrepreneur in Malaysia who was selling Indian food under the name McCurry. And McCurry was in grey. The words were in grey, but the C was still M capital, C small, and C capital again. And the background of the signage, it's grey against red. And when you enter the restaurant, and we did, when we were advising the lawyer on this case, on the IP elements, our team visited the restaurant, and the food was Indian food. So you have idli, vade, thosai, and that was one of the reasons that the McCurry actually won the case, because in the judgment, the judge said that we can't just compare McDonald's and McCurry and say that it's very similar. You have to look at the context of the entire business model. one targets young adults and has Wi-Fi, and the color theme is yellow and red. And when you go in, you've got food elements, fast food elements that are named with special names: filet of fish, Mac Rendang, all the various brand names, Mac Sunday, very specific to their food products. On this side, you have Indian food, and in the judgment, it says there isn't Mac Vade, Mac Thosai, Mac Italy. So there's no mimicking the food elements there. It's a completely different food. There's no Wi-Fi provided here. The interior design and the layout of this restaurant is different. How can someone get confused? So that was the national. How can someone entering here and enter here and think that they can get confused? And if we prevent it, doesn't that mean that McDonald's owns Mac, MC? And if they own Mac, isn't that unjust that they own a short prefix to their brand? And you know, what was interesting, Raja, is McDonald's has fought around the world. So their volume of cases that they have succeeded in around the world was voluminous. And but the cases that they've lost also voluminous. So we had to go and research all the cases that they had lost to see what elements that we could take to fight this case. In the end, the McDonald's actually won in the High Court, lost in the Court of Appeal. So, and then after that, it went into appeal again in the federal court. So it went to the last level, but parties settled. So it was an interesting situation.
I remember this case. It was a long time ago.
Yeah, this was a long time ago.
It's a very interesting case, actually. All of us were actually watching and actually reading the newspapers, just following through what's going to happen to this case, because it's like a David versus Goliath kind of stuff.
Yes, yes. You know, but when the owner, actually, I don't know what he's doing now, because when he won in the second instance, he came to us and said that, I want to franchise the business now. And that was tricky. It's like, oh, wow. And I want to take it overseas. So it's a question of, again, it's jurisdictional. Huh? So, and McDonald's, any large company will defend their intellectual property rights, whichever jurisdiction. So the thing about it is David versus Goliath. But when you're large, you also do not want to dilute your brand. So you have to enforce it. Otherwise, your franchisees who are all opening up your outlets will be also watching this case. If you allow it, there'll be a Mac Chinese, a Mac Wok, there'll be a Mac, so many other Macs, and they'll play with the color scheme. So it is in the interest of the IP owner to actually protect their rights. And the larger companies have deeper pockets. So they will go all out against all the smaller entrepreneurs.
Yeah. You have very high ambition about your organization, what you do. You are very driven, very energetic, etc. I can see that very clearly. Who would be your mentor, coach in making you who you are today? And what's your vision in the next few years?
Thanks for the question. I would say it's very much my parents. They both brought different sides out of me. I think my dad definitely tapped into my drive, and I tapped into his drive. For me, it was my dad's father was a gardener. So I felt that dad not only got out of poverty, but took it to another level, you know. And it was always me and my brothers were talking about, if he can do it, of course we can do it. We're given the education, we're given so much of privilege. Dad's thirst to always strive to be the best in his field and read so much. He's such a vast reader. My kids call him the walking encyclopedia. So he is my role model to always push myself and also to read outside of the IP domain. If you only confine yourself to your industry, you don't learn various other strategies that other industries are using. That would be on the career side. Why my mom's a role model is she brought a lot of stability. She was the driving force or the pillar of strength behind my dad. In any business or any profession, when you're striving to be the best, you're letting go something in the background. Mom was the one sending us for the tuition, helping us with homework, helping us with everything on the background. And I always felt that they worked great as a couple. And on the personal side, you know, when we were looking at expanding and opening various offices and COVID hit, I think I remember Thailand or Vietnam, one of the officers, she sat down with me and said, you have 3 kids, you have 3 children, they're really young, they need their mommy. do you really need to open another office? And I still remember the conversation because my brain went into, you don't understand what dad and I do. um, but it's a very good conversation to have that drive, and then someone looking at you and saying, why are you aiming here? Don't aim there. Why are you looking here? Not aiming there. Aim higher, Geetha. That was always my dad. And then my mom's like, what are you doing? Pull back, slow down. So it's like two conflicting voices here. I always felt it grounded me.
Yeah.
I have to then look at what am I chasing? I have to take into, is achievement and achieving great things, or what I think are great things, making me feel significant? Do I need achievement to make me feel significant? And then again, isn't having time more valuable? And yes, they are young, they are influenceable. If I don't influence them now, all they would have seen is a very busy working mom. So I felt they really shaped me into also pulling the handbrakes when I needed to pull the handbrakes.
So your dad is your dad and your boss, in a way.
Yes.
How do you see this?
He's a really nice boss. If you ask anyone in the team, clients, even some of my clients say he's the nicest person I've met. So I felt sometimes, in the early days, he doesn't come to office anymore. He's the brains behind the business at home. But the early days when he was in the office, I talk like this. It's the problem of being animated and passionate. I'll enter the meeting room and I'll have a very animated conversation with him and walk out of the meeting room, and the entire team thinks that I had an argument with him. And then I realized that I look at them and I'm very gel with the team. I'm very myself with the team. So I said, no, I did not fight with him. Okay, there was no arguments. There was just a very healthy debate. So I realized that I just sometimes I have to bring it a tone down a bit. He's a very easy to speak to, and one of the things I'd like to share is if there's any second-generation business owners or multi-generation business owners, or if you're the older generation and your kids have come into the business, to be very open to their ideas, I feel. At one point, when I joined the dad's firm, I felt he was a very intelligent and capable lawyer, but I was lost in terms of managing the team and building. So the business element, I felt that, how do I learn this? So I went to dad and said, let's get a business coach. The business coach will teach us how to run the firm like a business. Because I feel sometimes I don't know where to learn that. And I can read books, but the speed of reading books and implementing what you learn, that takes time.
It can only give you so much.
Yeah, correct. You need a hands-on experience.
Yeah.
So then there was this person I met at one of the business groups. Actually, he was British coach, actually. So Ian Homer, I'll send this video to you. Shout outs to you, Ian. Ian coached us for two years, put many things in place. But initially bringing Ian as a business coach to the firm, that's it. So you're bringing this British man who doesn't know anything about intellectual property rights to tell us how to run a business. It was a very interesting conversation. And I said, I might be wrong. And that's the thing about business. I might be wrong, might be burning money here. But why don't we try for 6 months? Doesn't work, we'll stop. So I had to have that conversation with the business coach, said, it's going to be a trial period for 6 months. And if it doesn't work, then I have to stop. So that gave me that space. As a young person, he could have said no, don't bring a third party who doesn't know the industry. But when he gave me that space, it was a respect both ways to, okay, let's see you out, let's hear you out. And we had Ian for 2 years and put systems in place, concepts in place, taught me how to build a culture, taught me what to think. We had a goal review on a weekly basis. And then I did that with my leadership team. So that, I have to say, it goes back to my dad to give me that space and that room to learn and make mistakes on my own.
With all this experience, knowledge, and wisdom that you have, what advice would you give to the future leaders, be it in the IP or non-IP sectors?
I think it would be future leaders or non-leaders. I think it's going to be whoever it is that's tuning in is to find what you like to do, or your passion. And the way to find it is actually to explore a lot, play a lot in various professions, and then see what really gets you driven. And then to believe in yourself, and that belief actually takes time. I think that belief in yourself, it's a catch-22 thing. Until you get good at what you want to specialize in, you have to keep trying and keep practicing, and you got to keep going at it. And then when you get to that level, then you like it, and then you believe in yourself. Sometimes it's hard to create that self-belief before you even get good at it. And that is the challenge. So I would say not to give up. Once you find something, or even if you don't find something that you really like, but you've chosen a career, to go all in. Go all in. Don't have one feet out and one feet in. Go all in, which means learn as much as you can in that profession and look at the ancillary skills around that profession. Your speaking skills, your emotional intelligence, your leadership skills, and that will propel you to another level.
Geetha, I really enjoyed this entire session. We'd like to thank you for your time today.
Thank you for your time as well. It's all your time and the team's time. So thank you, and thank you for having me over. It's been an honor.